Hello and welcome to the Biddy podcast. I have a very special guest today. It is none other than the Leonie Dawson. Hello, how are you doing?
Oh, the Bridget Esselmont, it's so good to see you. It's been so long since I
I
saw
know,
you less than
a whole
24 hours
24
ago.
hours. Awesome. Well, I'm going to give you your full and proper intro because you are fully deserving of all of the amazingness that you have created. And I know that, like, when you're going to hear Leonie's story, it's just super inspiring. So, Leonie Dawson is an internationally best-selling author of the My Brilliant Year workbooks, and they're also known as the Goal Getter workbooks. And you know what? I actually still have mine from like way back in 2013, 2014. And these workbooks shaped so much for me as I was growing my business. So kudos to you. And also, Leonie, you're a multi passionate entrepreneur that you've generated over $13 million in revenue while only working 10 hours a week. I love it. So, Leonie's been recognized for her business acumen by winning an Osmompreneurs People Choice Business Coach, Global Brand and Business Making, and Global Brand and Businesses Making a Different awards. So, Leonie, you've been spending the last 10 years living in some of the most beautiful places, including like 20 minutes away from me here on the Sunshine Coast, and living with your two daughters and your hubby. And I just like, yeah, I came across your work at the early stages of building my business, and I was so inspired by what you were offering. Just it's like a breath of fresh air in the space of digital marketing, because you are just so creative and free and fully expressed in everything that you do. And yeah, just I'm forever grateful for the influence that you had on my own journey as an entrepreneur. And I just love that we've been able to connect in this way in the last few years up on the sunny coast. So with all of that said, welcome, welcome, welcome. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here.
Thanks, darling. It's just like it feels weird when you hear like all your stuff and you're like, "Oh, that's some pretty cool stuff. Got to be chuffed with that." Like, "Oh, that's right. Those things happened. That's pretty fun."
Yes, yeah, most definitely. And I think it's so impressive, like the way that you're able to run your business on, just 10 hours a week, and to have such an impact on people now, but a sustained impact, over more than a decade. You've really maintained your connection with your community. Do you want to just share, like, I always love to hear a little bit of the backstory, or to share some of the backstory. So just tell me a little bit about how you got into this space, and even how things have evolved for you over these last, 10 years or so as a business, a creative business owner.
Mm. For me, like I really wanted to have some kind of creative career. I wanted to, from a really early age, I was like, I want to be an artist or a writer or a poet or somebody who changes the world. And my parents were farmers and they were like, you can't do that. Like that's like you've like artists are starving, like it's not a way to make money. And so I was like, oh, okay. And I'll have to go with like my kind of second option then. And so I decided that I'd become Prime Minister of Australia. That was just like, it was like, just the sloppy seconds, just the basic. Yeah, I'll just do that. That's fine. If I can't have what I really want, I'll just be Prime Minister of Australia because that's just how my brain works. So I moved to Canberra when I was 20 and I just had some incredible experiences. Got to work in Parliament House and got to work in the really amazing like government department and experience so many things at a really young age. Like it's just such an enormous blessing. And really quickly realized like, oh, I'm not going to be able to be all of myself in this setting. And there's more to express from me. So that was, I think I was about 23 when I was realized like, oh no, I do need to have a creative career. And I felt like I had to kind of come out to my parents and be like, hey guys, just letting you know, I am going to be an artist. And my dad was like, well, you're not going to make any money. And I was like, well, I guess like, you're a farmer and your father was a farmer and his father was a farmer and there's no money in farming either. So I just like, I come from a long line of dreamers, I guess. Like we were all just following our passions. And he said, you think you're really funny? And I said, I do. I think that's friggin' gold, Dad. Like, honestly. And from then on, it was like, right, okay, I'm here in the public service. I'm going to use my outside hours to start playing around and trying all of these things of how I'm going to have a creative career. And I tried lots of different things. I thought I'd be a graphic designer, a wedding photographer, ran retreats. I held my first solo art exhibition by the time I was, I think, 25 or something. I started selling art at markets, and it just started flowing from there. And I realized along the way that I was really shit at business and marketing and money because I wasn't getting the results that I wanted. And I decided to make a commitment to myself, like, right, in the next 12 months, I will earn $30,000 a year from my creative endeavors, and I will learn whatever I need to learn in order to get there. And making that dedication and commitment to myself, and really saying, like, right, I've built my creative and my spiritual muscles so much. I haven't built my business and marketing muscles at all. So I need to devote myself to that. So that's what I did. And I went to business and marketing gym every single day and tried out all the things, and it made a massive difference. So I got to 30 grand and then doubled and tripled from then on up to the seven-figure mark. I think like the biggest year we've had was like 2.8 million in a year, which is amazing. At that
Mm.
point, I had to build up to a really large team in order to do it, and realized along the way, like, oh, I really hate having a large team. I don't like managing staff whatsoever. And so for me, it's a much better fit for me to have a really simple, streamlined team and keep it a little bit more streamlined. So it's still like really high revenue, still earning the average of kind of $1 million a year or so, but doing it in a way that's kind to my soul and to my neurodivergence as well.
Yes. I think, something that I think our community will really relate to is the kind of the creative spark. Like, so like even tarot, like tarot reading tarot and having that calling to use the cards, become an intuitive healer and so on is another like creative outlet. And it's another one of those examples where it's traditionally you go, oh, okay, well, hope someone else is supporting you financially over there. But
Yeah.
I think you've really bucked the trend, and you've maintained you've created such an abundant business from really tapping into that creative essence. Like, what advice would you have for people, particularly our tarot readers who might be on the cusp of like, oh, do I start a side hustle? Do I start a business? How do I follow my creative passions, but do so in a way that's also going to support me and offer that sort of the financial
Mm.
foundations?
I think like there's these different elements to it. So play and experimentation is just such a big part of it. And then I also regarded it as like, my creative and my spiritual gifts are something that I wanted to share with the world. And the business was the vessel to take them there, to create this strong energetic container for me to take it out into the world to a bigger audience and to make it sustainable, to make it doable. And so anything that you can do to build a stronger boat is going to serve you really beautifully so that you do receive enough abundance to be able to look after yourself and make it sustainable. We've all known, kind of like the broke healer mentality where, healers have these incredible gifts, but they don't know how to build that vessel to share it with the world. And so, they need to always be getting money in other areas, or they don't have enough money to be able to look after themselves and will experience burnout. So anything you can do to build that strong vessel to share your gifts with the world is a really important part of it.
Mm. And then sometimes I feel like, business and spirituality or creativity, they can definitely run in a beautiful alignment together, but there are also times when they conflict, and maybe you feel maybe you pull too much into the business space at the expense of your spirituality or creativity. Can you think of a time or two that might have happened for you? And, how did you navigate that?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely having like the larger team,
Mm.
I realized like I was spending so much time managing staff and, putting out fires in the business and at the expense of my creative time.
Mm.
And also like, you when you've got that much staff, so we had, 20 plus staff, when you have that amount of staff, and we were printing the workbooks ourselves, and, it was like a $500,000 a year printing, expense. You're like, oh shit, I just need to make money in order to even pay these like massive bills and the staffing bills. So, and it got to the point where I didn't even have time for the creativity. So I'd have to like set aside time on the weekend to be able to create for my business, which was kind of hilarious and crazy because I'd started this business in order to create. So that at that point, it was like, right, I need to have a shift of the business model for me running, like being printing all the books and distributing them ourselves and having, all of our mail, like our shipping house contracts in 3 different countries, and then having 5+ customer service, because we'd send out like 80,000 packages in the space of 3 months, and it was just mayhem. So that was all quite high intensity to do it that way, where I can still share my books with the world, but doing it in a more streamlined business model with print on demand instead, so that we didn't have to have all that logistical cost and the management cost of managing that whole process. That was so much more saner for me, and it helps me stay in a much more creative space. So
Mm.
it's just that, like, you just got to explore and try out all the different things with business and work out what really works for you and what works for your brain and the kind of lifestyle that you want, and then go all in that and do it unapologetically.
Yes. And from what I have observed of your journey, definitely do it very unapologetically.
Mm.
I think you're very clear about what's working for you and what's not, and you make very quick changes to make sure it comes back into alignment. I'm curious too, like with the creative flow and it being as part of the business, sometimes some of the conflict that one might feel and that I've experienced at times is the push pull of trying to monetize your creativity, because
Mhm.
creativity wants to be in flow, it wants to be as you feel inspired, but sometimes with business you've got to deliver on a date, you've got to like make it fit a mold, it's got to be able to earn money and so on. How do you balance, or how do you enable your creativity to be in that state of flow even though it's in that business context?
Mm. I mean, it's a dance and it's a balance. So for me, yes, I absolutely have things like deadlines that have to come out. So we have new workshops that get released to my academy every single month. So like they're all just scheduled in my calendar, and I know that, the week before that I'll be preparing all of that, and, just trying to pour as much creativity as I can into that process as well. And also just leaving myself an enormous amount of space to do stupid, ridiculous side projects. So I'm not somebody who's super strategic with freebies. Like, my method more is just, I'll just make whatever the fuck I like and throw it out in the world. And if people like it, cool. But it's like not going to even really be attached to any funnels or anything like that. You'll just get on my mailing list and I'll keep sending you weird shit. And at some point you might buy something, and that's great. Otherwise, I don't really care. I'll just keep making weird shit anyway. So I've made just like I've got a free shit page on my website, and it's just filled with just all kinds of crazy shit, from like 300-page coloring books that I hand illustrated and just gave away because why not, to, illustrated zines and comics that I've made, to checklists, to, how to be a domestic goddess. I made that like, I don't know, 14 years ago. And I thought I was hilarious because it was called How to Be a Domestic Goddess, How to Be a Business Goddess, while also nailing motherhood and keeping a clean house. And the book was blank. And
Cheeky.
it's still the funniest thing I've ever made, right? Like, and people, like, the amount of emails I would get, people like, the ebook hasn't broken. It's like, that's the point, babes. That's the point. Keep scrolling. Eventually you get to the point. It's like, haha, get it, because I don't have a fucking clean house. Like, it's not in my line of interest. Now, does that like run into like a course that I'm selling? No, it's just hilarious. And of course, I'm going to keep making weird shit like that. And like, one of my goals each year as well is like to have 2 duds a year, like, as in, like, to put something else and for it to completely flop, just to make weird stuff. So like in the pandemic, I wrote like an erotic romance novella because why not? I just needed something to do something. So that was, my work week for a couple of weeks was writing something ridiculous. And I need that in order to keep feeling joyful and inspired. And I think it also just like people are excited to see what happens next because truly, who the fuck knows what's going to happen?
Yes. Yeah, and I think that's what makes you and what makes like your whole brand so magical is that you have such of that wild free spirit. And no doubt it really keeps that creative spark and that creative flame like alight, which is really powerful. You talked earlier about being neurodivergent, and I would love to just hear about how your neurodiversity, how you're using that as your like advantage, your strategic advantage in your business, and how you're making it really work for you.
Like I just think for me, this is my own experience, and I get that other people have different experiences. But for me, I like if you gave me the option to be autistic and ADHD or not and be neurotypical, I will always choose neurodivergent because it is the source of so much joy and light in my life. And it just brings me an enormous amount of happiness. Like, I love how this ridiculous brain works. And like, I'm always going to be amused being in my own company. I'm like, oh, I just said that, did I? Oh, okay, carry on. Like, let's see what happens next. It's always going to be a surprise. And I also just like, there's so many parts that make life rapturous. Like the fact that I can look at the light shimmering in tree leaves and just be in a point of ecstasy. And I think I think people don't have those experiences unless they're on like hallucinogenic substances. And I don't actually need that many hallucinogenic substances. I'm just on my brain. Like my brain's like, oh, whoa, look at that. And like, it's so much like that my whole life I've been asked, like, what are you on? Honestly, what are you on? And my answer is always just air. But the answer is really like, I'm on a brain that's just fueled by autism and ADHD, and what a blessing that is. So, when it comes to my business, I know that I have to do business in a way that really works for my brain. Because here's the thing with my brain, it's ecstatic when it's working. And if it's not working, it is hell in a handbasket. It is a shit straight. It's just shit up the wall, just like, like it's not great. So anything I can do to stay regulated and in a good place, key. And if I don't, then it's just a straight like train ride descent into mayhem. So I know what sets me off. Like I know what upsets my nervous system. For me, I don't do travel. I don't go to conferences that much. I went to two last year. That was the first time in like 8 years. Oh my God, hello, balloons. What's happening? That's exciting. I don't know what happened there. Did you see that? Was it just my
I
brain?
did. No, it
Whoa.
wasn't your brain.
Whoa. I'm going to try doing that again. I'm getting
It's an
so
uncontrollable feature. I don't know where it's coming from. You can try to make balloon things and it won't even do it, but oh, you did it.
oh, I had love hearts come out of my head. This is very exciting. Oh, God. Okay, now I have to try and remember what I was saying. ADHD. All right, I'm on. Okay, so I know that for me, going out in public is as much as I love it and as much as I love people, I have very like I get so much joy from being around people, and it's an enormous energy tax for me. Like it's going to take me, like we hung out with, three of our dearest friends yesterday, two other dearest friends, like this you, me, and two dear friends. We only hung out for like 3 or 4 hours. It was super chill. Like it'll take me the rest of the week to recover from that, like I've used up all my words. I said a lot of inappropriate things and I'll be thinking about them going, oh God, why, Leonie, why? So I know I have to limit that as much as it's really, really fun. And I know that I need to just have exquisite self-care. So I don't do team meetings. My assistant manages all of our other assistants. So we have four part-time assistants. My right-hand person, she manages them because I just don't have that skill and that capacity. And if they're always going to be asking me questions, it's just going to short out my brain. Or if I'm to hold space for them emotionally, I'm already at capacity. I've got 2 kids and a husband, and that's more than enough to zonk me out. I need to, every single weekend, I have solo mama retreats. So I go and hide in a room for the afternoon and I read books and I do e-courses and I do art and I do things just to fill up my well. And if I don't, I'm kind of a bitch for the rest of the week. My husband and my kids call me Sharon when I get into this narky kind of state. And so they, even my kids now will say to me, "Oh, mum, you just seem to be getting a bit tense. Why don't you go have a lay down?" So I know that it's just like an important part of me to be my best self with my family and in my life. Um, yeah, and whatever, like people say, like you have to do all this stuff in business. What is happening? I've made balloons happen again. This is incredible. Why is this doing it to me? This is so exciting. Yeah, like there's just like all these things people say that you've got to do in business, and I just don't prescribe to that. If it's not in my gift, like if it's not in my wheelhouse of strengths, then it just needs to be abolished or delegated.
Yes. Yeah, interesting. And yeah, I'm also kind of curious, like I know many of our community of tarot readers are also neurodivergent, but not only that, like as a reader, you're experiencing many different people. I am curious if you have any advice for, like, if you are, say, doing a reading or some kind of coaching healing session for someone who is neurodiverse. Is there anything that you should keep in mind, or an alternate way of communicating? What would make that feel like a really supportive environment?
So we prefer less analogies and more direct speech. So we want you to tell us exactly what you're saying and try not to use sayings in order to illustrate something. Like the, for example, the silver lining of the cloud, whatever that stupid saying is. I friggin' hate that one because our brains, like, it's just an extra tax. It's an extra bit. I still don't understand. It's been explained to me so many times about this fucking lining on the fucking cloud, and I still don't get it. If you could just tell me whether something's good or bad, great. Please make it direct, because otherwise our brain is just all over the place trying to understand what the heck you're meaning. So if you could be like less poetic and like less like, look, let me just draw you a picture, and we're just saying, please say yes or no. Please just tell me very clearly what you mean, because if you're just painting pictures, we are stressing out all over the place trying to work out what you mean. And even if you can't give a direct answer, like say that and like be clear in that. Wishy-washy doesn't work like so well for us. It feels really unsettling and nerve-wracking for us. Also acknowledging, for a lot of us, we have smell sensitivity. So if you could reduce the amount of perfume that you use, if you could turn off, if you've got essential oil pumping constantly, that can really upset us. It's a massive trigger point for me. Don't hug someone unless they ask you to. Don't touch them unless you've got their, full consent. And thinking about, the sensory experience. If you're in a really loud tent at a market, and there's lots of people walking past, you need to do things to limit the amount of noise and view that people can see. Otherwise, it's too much for us to be able to be in there. Yeah, thinking about it just from the extra sensitivity points of view can be really, really helpful. And being a bit more blunt with us would be really, really nice. And like once you get used to our people, you can spot us from a mile away. Like it's very obvious. It's like at a 50-meter radius that you can see us. We're always dressed like a little bit oddly. Like we just don't quite have it all together. We didn't get the style guide to being a human, okay? It's a little bit more color. It's a little bit more comfy shoes kind of situation. Yeah, that's what you're going to be finding, especially ones with the ADHD flair tend to go for more dopamine dressing situations. And anything you can do to create those spaces, it's beautiful. And I think neurodivergent people are particularly attracted to spirituality, intuition, new age, because we literally feel things that other people can't. This is how the brain works. We are filming in 4K technology when everyone else is just filming in SD. It's going to take us a long time to process stuff. That's what I would say.
Yeah. That is so helpful. And I think, yeah, especially like being direct and not kind of beating around the bush and just talking a lot in stories sometimes, I think can be a little bit confusing about what is it that you actually mean. So I think that's really helpful and good, again, to keep this in mind, like as you're experiencing different clients, to know that everyone is like, everyone's different. We perceive the world different and we experience the world differently as well. I'm kind of curious because okay, there's a few layers to this question, this thread. First, Leonie, do you use tarot and oracle cards?
I do, yes. Lifelong love of them. It started off with, of course, Doreen Virtue. I think that's like the beginning for many of us old schoolers before she went so weird and renounced her work. So, like the angel cards were the beginning for me. And I mean, I've got your cards. This is my little altar space here for my business. So your cards are just there as well. And particularly when I'm in like the messy middle of stuff, I'm drawing cards to try and get some more insight. And even in like the goal workbooks, there is a space in the business goals workbook and the life goals workbook for you to do a tarot card reading for the year ahead as well, because it can just bring out extra energies and essence. And for me, like I have found that it work instead of just doing straight business coaching, it always works better for me to just get energy and intuitive, like energy healings and intuitive healings and Reiki and that kind of stuff on a regular basis and keeping my spirit really aligned. And then I can create so much more from there. So that works better for me even in a therapy situation. Oh, I should say there's some fascinating research, by the way. So for people who are neurodivergent, cognitive behavioral therapy is classed as gold standard, but that's only for neurotypical people. So if you are neurodivergent, cognitive behavioral therapy often can exacerbate your symptoms and cause you to spiral and ruminate further. So, and they haven't actually found the gold standard for neurodivergent people yet in terms of therapy. So it's really a case of you working out what works for you. There are a huge range of different modalities. Acceptance and commitment therapy, which is a different kind of therapy, can be a little bit more useful. DBT therapy can be more useful. And also just like entering into the more hippie elements. Like some people find equine healing to be hugely useful because neurodivergent people have a very, very strong connection to animals and to nature. And we understand them more innately because they're non-speaking. And we get so much more out of that. So for me, that self-care part is like, I know that kinesiology with our friend Kerry Rowett, that helps get me so much faster on the path than continuing to ruminate about stuff.
Yes. Yeah, that's really good to know. When you are using tarot cards or oracle cards, for
Mm.
example, I'm so curious if you relate to them in, say, a different way. Like, does a neurotypical relate to a tarot card in a different way to, say, a neurodivergent and vice versa? Particularly if like the stories or the analogies are a little bit harder to look at. So do you, like when you are looking at cards, are you thinking about more about like what does this card mean? Or are you also thinking about like what's the story in the card, what symbols speak to you, or is that too kind of
Mm.
too like blurry?
Yeah. For me, I tend to, like, as I'm picking cards, I'll innately know, like, oh, that one's for me or not. So I might pick one and go, and I look at the image, I'm like, no, no, that's not the message for me. Like, I've just picked up the wrong card. And so I'll put it back until I find the right message. And sometimes like the picture is just enough. I'm like, I know exactly what that means. I like, even if it's a deck that I've never picked up, even if it's not like tarot, it's more of an oracle deck, just from the image and the word alone, I know exactly what it is and what it means to me. It's like, the soul collage Have you heard of that? Like, it used to be around like 20 years ago. Basically, you made your own kind of tarot card range through collage. And I did a bunch of workshops on it. It was really beautiful. And so you're looking through magazines like National Geographic or whatever to find images and then putting them together. And then often the meaning sort of reveals itself as you're putting it. And so you like end up having this kind of beautiful, like handmade tarot or oracle card deck in a way that's like made up of your unique stories. And I think that's really beautiful, like having that personal relationship with it. For me, like I tend to do, I've got like the Light Seers tarot at the moment. It's just like a little pocket tarot that I've picked up, but I've got ADHD, so I don't know where it is. I know it's somewhere close to hand in my vast quantities of piles. So I'm just like flick through that and I'm like, yep, I know what that means. And then, read the message and I'll just take, the 10% that applies to me and discard the rest. I don't need to bother with it.
Yeah, yeah, so interesting. I love it. And again, I think it's useful to understand that from, how we learn to read tarot, but also how we can communicate, like for tarot readers, how we can communicate to clients about involving them with looking at the cards and looking at different parts of the cards. And I think that's interesting that you just kind of know immediately if something is in tune or aligned for you or not. Yeah, go. Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, I always know like if a person's a really good tarot card reader or not. This is so funny. Maybe it's just my own thing, but if they pull the star card in the reading, I'm like, oh, they've got my energy. And if they don't, I know they haven't.
I love it. Okay, now I won't be able to pull cards for you anymore.
Oh no, it's fine. Like
Oh God,
obviously, no, obviously, very good. We were laughing yesterday because, like, with it, we've got a beautiful circle, like, of local businesswomen, and Bridget led us in a cacao ceremony. Oh, I think it must be 9 months ago. It was beautiful, and it was such a potent day, and it was just one of the most magical days I've had in years. And at the end, Bridget was pulling tarots for us, and we're like, oh, well, if only we had like world's leading expert on how tarot works to do this for us. And you were pulling cards and they were beautiful, and then it kept on saying, oh, like at some point soon, like members of the group will start leaving on their own journeys. And all of us love each other so much. We're like, well, and it was probably just me who was doing this. Like, no, Bridget, you're wrong. Pull other cards. You're wrong. None of us are leaving. We're going to stay like this forever. And you were like, I'm serious. It's just what the cards are saying. And I was giving you such a hard time because that's what I'm like. And now, it's like 9 months later and a bunch of us are like, the winds have changed and we are being pulled away. And so I said to you yesterday, like, oh, I'm sorry. I gave you so much shit for pulling cards that 100% are accurate.
Yeah, isn't that the thing? I mean, I experience this time and time again where I'll pull cards and be like, oh, I don't like that, or no, that can't be true. I must have got that one wrong. And then literally like weeks or months or sometimes even years, it's like, crap. Tarot is right again.
Mm-hmm.
Do not ignore the messages of the tarot. Yeah, so interesting how it all works for sure. So would you consider yourself quite intuitive as well?
Oh, I don't know. Like, I don't feel like I'm very intuitive when it comes to the rest of the world. I feel like the rest of the world is a huge puzzle to me. Still, like, I think my husband is much more intuitive of like what's happening in the outside world, and I fully will like just outsource that to him and follow his direction. I think I'm quite intuitive when it comes to my own thing and what I want to create and in my own inner world. So I keep my focus on that instead.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, again, it's seeing like knowing you for a while, like I can just see where you are really able to keep yourself like aligned and on check. But it's interesting, yeah, because maybe the external world is so like so many data points, to be able to make sense of that and pull that together. Yeah,
It's fascinating. And like, I'm always fascinated. Like my husband is so observant, and I think if I was that observant, like I would actually just not be able to like even function because it's like just so much information. But he can read people from 50 meters away and be like, oh, this has happened for them, or this is what's going to happen next. And so
Mm.
like some of the things that like he's said over the years, I'm like, no, it'll be fine because I'm such a Pollyanna. I'm so I know what I want to create in this inner world, and I've just got my blinkers on, and I'm so focused on that. And I don't pay as much attention to the outside world. And so when he's saying, "Oh, I know that this is going to happen and come up for us," I'm like, "No, it'll be fine." And then, of course, it fucking does, like 100%, it does. But I think it's a blessing that we've got that balance of like I'm so devoted to what I want to create, what I want to do. And then he's got like the sensory on the outside of like, oh, this stuff is coming our way and probably will affect us.
Yeah, definitely. It makes a good partnership. And then I'm curious then, do you also have that within your business context? Do you have someone that can maintain that external focus while you can maintain your internal?
No, but I don't care.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever had that. I just run it purely off my own energy. Plus, I mean, my business is my own energy, really. Like, I just don't feel like it gets affected by outside sources as much. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's
Makes
something's
sense.
like really big comes up, then it'll come into my focus enough for me to like decide on how to fix that. But other than that, I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I'm curious, like, what is coming up for you, like, over the next 6 to 12 months in your work?
Mm. I never know. Like I don't plan things out. Like I do know. So I've got my Brilliant Business Life Academy, which is kind of the big focus for my work. It's where I pour pretty much all of my creations and workshops and templates and anything that I feel called to create. I just give it to my people. And we have like 5,000 members. We have really high membership retention rates of people who want to stay in there year after year. And I love just being able to turn up and serve all the people who want me to love on them. And like it just feels easy and good. Like I get to stay in this space of just enjoying and creating and loving people up. And it creates a really strong financial base as well because people get so much out of it. They just want to stay around. So it's a win-win-win all around.
Yeah, and I think actually it gives you a really nice like container to kind of channel all of your energy and just to the one thing rather than trying to have like multiple things on the go, which I would suspect would be kind of a lot to process and deal with. Continuing your yearly workbooks as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So they
Yeah.
just come out every single year. I think I might do up a new cover for them next year and maybe release like a hardcover version if people want that. Yeah, it's pretty fun. Like I created it in 2009 just because I wanted a way to set my goals for my life, my business for the year ahead. And I didn't want it to be like black and white and boring and basic and like masculine. And I wanted it to be more creative and spiritual and unicorns and rainbows and color and fun and a really wholehearted approach to life and business and money and health and all the things. So I made them for myself and then I was like, oh, this is really cute. I'll just share them with the internet and see what happens. And if like 10 people want to set their goals with me, cool. So I put it out, I think it was like December 28th. I put it out in 2009 and it just took off like wildfire and became this kind of massive cult hit. So I think like 1,000 people bought it in the first couple of weeks. And then once people start using it, they want to do it again the next year because it's made such a big difference. And then they just, and then they want their friends to do it with them. And so
Mm.
now over 500,000 people have used it, which is just crazy.
It's insane. Isn't it amazing? Actually, if I'm going to find my one, I'm sure it's here. Where is it? Oh, yep. It's going. Oh, this is going great if you're watching the video. If you are listening just to the podcast, you'd be like, oh, what? This is the
Where
boring
did she
section.
go?
Oh, and okay, look what I'm wondering how far it goes back. Yeah, I've got my 2014 one here,
Oh,
and it's just so pretty. Like, look,
little Bridgie.
little Richie, look, all these beautiful. It is just such a beautiful, like, illustrated book. And so for me, I remember like when I'm filling this out, because it's so visually like gorgeous, it kind of taps into that creative part of your brain as you're doing things like planning. So yeah, I'm so glad it's not the black and white planning, because that just uses up so much of just the cerebral mind. Whereas this starts to tap into something so much more into the heart space, into the more intuitive space, because the actual like illustrations, the colors are really speaking to you as you're creating it. So that's why I've got the 2014, I've got a 2015.
Oh.
The flashbacks. Wait, here we go. Here's a 2017 and a 2020. Look at all these cute covers, so how they change. And I'm pretty sure I've got the rest I ended up doing digitally, because try and save on some paper. But I think, yeah, it's just absolutely gorgeous. So if you're listening, you've never experienced these amazing goals workbooks, absolutely check them out. They're available all year round? Like you can
you can just get them on Amazon. Yeah. And they come pretty quickly. It's pretty amazing.
Awesome. And it is actually like, even if you do it in the middle of the year, I think it's still really valuable. So you said you can get the workbooks on Amazon. Can you get them on your site as well?
No, just on Amazon, babes. Yeah, I mean, like you can find them on my website, but I'm just going to send you back to Amazon or wherever else.
All right, fab. Well, get onto Amazon. You can get the workbooks there. And then where can we find out more about you, Leonie?
Look, the best place is always on my website, leoniedawson.com. Sign up to go have a look at my free shit page. Have a look at all the free shit I've got on there. Go get yourself some free stuff. It's so great and so fun. And that's really the best way to to keep in contact with me. Yeah, you can find me on social media. Yeah, I've got my own podcast where I talk a ridiculous amount of rubbish with our friend, Maddie. But yeah, I think the website's like your best bet. It's where I pour the best magic of me.
Yeah, awesome. And I think, what's cool is you've got some fun stuff, playful stuff, but you've also got some stuff that's actually really functional and very purposeful. And yeah, just go check it out, get a little dose of Leonie. And yeah, I think you'll just keep going back for more. So thank you so much, Leonie. It's been amazing to chat. I've just loved, hearing your stories and, just hearing some of your advice too, that can be so helpful in navigating different people, different clients, different situations. Really, really helpful. So really appreciate it. And yeah, appreciate your time and energy today.
Oh, I love you, Bridgie. Thanks for having these conversations. They're so important. And I'm so lucky that I get to love you in person as well.
Hey, lucky us. Awesome. Thank you. Hey, if you loved this video, then make sure you check out this next video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. See you next time.